In the mid-70s, corporate giants like IBM weren't convinced that a real mass market in computers would ever exist. Unaware of the brilliant work of Xerox PARC, they saw their customers as limited to scientific and business institutions. But there was a group who desperately wanted their own computers, people who'd grown up on the fringes of the computer establishment, technical hobbyists who'd used computers at universities and knew their remarkable versatility. Before the microprocessor, their dreams seemed absurd. Now, perhaps, things would change. In January 1975, the front cover of Popular Electronics featured a computer kit called the Altair for the unheard-of price of $500. Based on a microprocessor, you had to assemble it yourself, and when assembled, it did almost nothing. If people did want to own their computer, here, finally, was the opportunity.
And what happened was all this pent-up demand, a sort of latent understanding everybody had of what computers could do, suddenly was allowed to burst forth. People drove all night to get their computer kits. Why do people read the popular mechanics magazines? Because they dream of all the things they could do if. And suddenly here was a new if. If only I had this computer, I could keep track of everything, I could learn everything, I could be creative in every possible way. And so it began.
For technical hobbyists, it was a dream come true. Now they could have their own computer. Clubs of enthusiasts grew up all over America, like the Homebrew Computer Club in San Francisco, where members showed off what they'd got their home-brewed computers to do. From these modest beginnings came a series of start-up companies selling parts for the Altair, and soon whole computers. By 1976, there were enough of them to hold a convention in Atlantic City. Off in a corner of the convention hall were a group of scruffy-looking individuals selling circuit boards. Two of them would become synonymous with the personal computer, Steve Jobs and Stephen Wozniak. As teenagers growing up in Silicon Valley, Jobs and Wozniak had developed reputations as high-tech pranksters, all too eager to thumb their noses at authority.
Woz and I had known each other since I was about 12 or 13 years old. And our first project together was we built these little blue boxes to make free telephone calls. And we had the best blue box in the world. It was this all digital little blue box. I don't think it works anymore, so. But we had a fun time doing that. So when it came to building a computer together, Woz was the brilliant hardware engineer and focused on the core design of the computer. And I was worrying about which parts we ought to use and how we were going to build these things and how somebody that wasn't a Woz was going to manage to buy all the extra parts you still needed to buy and plug this thing together.
So I was not designing a computer with any idea we'd ever start a company, ever have a product, ever be successful. It was just to go down to the club and show off and to own and use. Steve saw the interest, and he started coming up with ideas right away how this thing could be turned into product, how it could be marketed.
The two Steves, however, knew little about running a business. Their ambitions might have come to nothing had they not decided to go to Mike Markkula and ask for help. Markkula was a retired Intel executive who liked helping young entrepreneurs. When he saw the computer they were building, the Apple, he was entranced.
And I looked at it and I said, this is the first affordable, useful computer for people. And the two guys really didn't have the background and experience to start a company and make it successful. So I agreed to help them.
What happened next is the stuff of legend. The story of Jobs and Wozniak and the rise of Apple computers is the American dream writ large. For the seeds the hobbyists had planted grew quickly into a huge microcomputer industry. Contrary to the expectations of the corporate establishment, people did apparently want to own their own computers, although it wasn't clear exactly why they wanted them. Some used them for games, and later scientific and business uses were found. But whatever the reason, people seemed to want to own them. While many of the start-up companies folded in this turbulent market, under Markula's careful management, Apple prospered, becoming the fastest-growing company in history. Jobs, Wozniak and Markula became rich beyond their dreams. Each ended up with more than $100 million. The computer, once an expensive, room-sized machine, was now coming off the assembly line by the thousand. An idea which a decade before would have sounded like science fiction.